In all the interviews that I've been going through, I mean, I've done one after another where it's always the question, what do you think of, isn't it exciting to be a black designer right now? I said, I've always been black.
There you go.
And I've been a designer since I was a little kid. I've designed everything. So I'd rather be known as a designer who happens to be black than at this moment just a black designer who's out there because of some kind of quota or something, or skin tone, or if there's like a, you know, oh, if we do 6, we got to have 3 that are black, you know, I'm going to throw you in there, because it seems so inauthentic. And it's the same thing I was saying about speaking out. If it's natural, you're spot. Obviously, I'm a black man, so when I see someone on the ground with a knee on his neck, obviously I feel it. So I feel the unique opportunity that I can say something. But some people who, like, you know, I love the empathy. Stand behind it, support it, give money, support the causes, whatever. But standing up
and do your reading and your research.
And understand from whence you speak, because it's also embarrassing to hear people speak and they're completely biased.
We are joined here with the award-winning, fabulous Frederick Anderson. How are you doing today?
I'm really good, thank you. And it's great seeing you again.
It's always good to see you. Walk us through the collection. It's beautiful.
It's interesting. So this season, obviously, I don't need to tell everyone what we've gone through. But when we have the kind of actually slow down and time to take and kind of think through things and kind of experience, assess life. Yeah. You know, a lot of things change. So, like, it's interesting. After the show last time, I started thinking of this idea of late 60s, early 70s, and then I started this whole kind of freedom thing because of, you know, after I did the burnt roses and the tattoos, it was so edgy. I thought, now I want to be natural and kind of much more earthy. And then, like, through this process, it's interesting with, like, the protest and everything that happened. It was like, okay, wait a minute. We can't go back toward edge again. We kind of have to bring it down. Like, and I have to feel sensitive to the feelings of where my client and where just the world is. I mean, what are we thinking about right now? And I thought what we're thinking about is ourselves and how do we protect ourselves and how do we bring nourishment to ourselves in lots of ways. And so I started thinking about the idea, and I touched on this already, thinking about the idea of, like, things being natural and touched by the hand. And so I started even going deeper into that. So in the collection, I have these wonderful laces that almost feel like they're organic and that they're like hand stitched and they feel very like crocheted together. And with that, I also worked with this great company, Abrena, down in Argentina. And we created these wonderful hand crocheted knits that have become the base of the collection. And they're so intricate, and it was actually exciting for me to sit and work through these stitches and ideas and have someone, literally, I would like send them an idea through the internet and they'd send me something back, an image back. And it was kind of fun creating and dissecting the idea of putting these kind of like little lines of stitches together and creating a story. I like the feeling of this is what I was saying about the different stitches that I use, and I kind of put them together, and all of these are dropped out to create like this kind of like melange of different like textures. And it was the same way, and it kind of mirrored what's happening in my laces, and it mirrored what's happening in the hand tweeds that I was doing in Paris. And so Paris basically did the same thing. I sent them images of what I was working on, and they took tweeds and I gave them a color story and an interest story because we couldn't meet. You know, nothing was open. So, and then they would send me little swatches through the mail and I would take them. So it was an interesting process, you know, and I would take them and say, oh, I like this process, but can we take that and add this? And, you know, and once again, I wanted it to feel everything was hand touched, which it really was.
How do you feel this pandemic, how has it impacted you?
Well, like I said, I feel like you have to be sensitive to where the emotional energy is now. Yep. And even though people are feeling down right now, our job as designers also is to perceive what we feel the future is going to be. So we have to think about, like, when this lands to the consumer, which is really end of year, first of next year, you know, it'll be January, February. What is she going to feel like? I mean, I think now we're in this kind of maldron, kind of like, you know, kind of laid back state, kind of like chill mood. But I think
working from home?
Exactly. But by the time we get to the end of the year, we're going to be in this moment where we're like, okay, well, I want to get back out there, but how does it look when I get back out there? What do I feel like? How do I take this moment of this kind of retrospective moment where we've been spending a lot of time with our family and ourselves and kind of going through our own feelings? How do we take that forward and we start, like, it's not going to be big celebrations, but how do we start doing dinners? And we start traveling for the first time. But we're not traveling far because we can't go to Europe. But you'll be traveling to Aspen. You'll be traveling to Mexico. You'll be traveling to the beach. And what does that look like and what does it feel like? And so I dealt with that throughout the collection. So instead of spring being all bright colors, and I never do prints. You won't see them over here. But instead of that, I took the silks and I mixed them back with the knits and I mixed it back with the tweeds. So even though it's light and airy, it also feels comfortable. So that, like, you know, even when you're traveling, you have that great little cardigan to throw over top of you. You can take it to Aspen, and if you decide to go to the beach afterwards, then you can go straight to the beach and you use it as a cover-up. It's the idea of convertible dressing done well and done in a chic way.
So, without further ado, Frederick, can you walk us through the collection?
When you take these textures that, like, you know, they're very dry, you know, and you mix them together, it's a story that's very comfortable, but it's super chic. You know, and all of these are super lightweight. When you see these, you can actually see through the tweed, which I think is also very modern. And these two together, I just think, is the ultimate in modernity. It's the idea of softness and shine, and the idea of this kind of flirty kind of feeling on this blouse, kind of played back with kind of this very almost, you know, utilitarian feel with the pockets and you know, attached to the lace skirt. I like the idea of the sweatshirt as well, which, you know,
I like that one.
If you're going to do a sweatshirt, let's be couture, you know.
How's the consumer habits changed now?
I think the consumers are very smart. Yeah. I think they do a lot of research. They look online. They know what they like. They know what they don't like. But also on top of that, they actually know what they want and what they need in their wardrobe. You know, when we talk about what does loungewear look like in a couture market, you know, the idea of how you look when you step out, when we come out of the clouds and we come out of our little cocoons that we've been in for 6 months, I want to dress like this. I mean, my client, as you talk about buying habits, my client doesn't dress head to toe in me or anyone. You know, she'll buy like a little skirt like this, and then she'll put a little t-shirt over top of it, and then she'll throw my little jacket over it. You know, she'll do this, and then underneath it will be like God only knows what. Yeah, exactly.
But that's what I love about your clients. Your clients are someone who is like long term. They're not just there for the fad or for that season.
Oh no, absolutely.
They're like literally family. I've seen you at the shows. You know them by their first and last name. You know their kids. It's more like a family.
Well, I think that happens with any designer of any kind of merit, that they're not fans, they become part of your design story, because I'm as influenced by them as they're influenced by me. You know, I watch them and how they put it together. You know, you'll see on my Instagram, I post some of them. I mean, you know,
we've seen the luxury life in the Hamptons.
No, and like my friend Ula Parker, who's with Ellen von Unwerth, how random in you know, in the Tuscany Valley, and she puts on this chic, like, I forgot I had done it. It was like from 3 seasons ago, and I was like, oh, that's super chic, and I was like, oh, that's mine.
But it's from, like you just said, it's seasons ago. It's like longevity. It's not just like here today and like gone tomorrow.
And it's part of her wardrobe. She actually rolled that up and packed it and took it with her. So that means that's true love of pieces, and that's what I mean by putting it back in your wardrobe and thinking about the idea of use.
Yes.
And I think that's one thing that I think the design community and the fashion community specifically needs to learn, and we're learning through this pandemic kind of, you know, like minor recession depression, is that we're learning that the things that are selling are things that people feel they need in their lives. They're no longer feeling extravagant. They're feeling like they need stuff because I have somewhere to go and I have something to do, or I want something fresh, but I don't want to scream. I'm not in that moment where I want to go out and say, "Hey, baby, look at me," you know, exactly, you know, and
toning it down.
Yeah, bringing it down. It's bringing it down, and it's out of respect, especially because obviously my client has money, and so it's out of respect for all the lives that have been lost and this really somber time. Yeah. It would be inappropriate to go out in a red multi-beaded, like, you know, top with feathers. Like, if you saw someone, you would actually go, "That's embarrassing."
Yeah.
You would. It's not the appropriate time, and you have to think of clothing in that context, because that's a designer's job. Our job is to push people forward, but to show them the way that they can look chic at that given time. I mean, that's what fashion is about. It's what people are wearing at the time.
You've got a beautiful business mind as well. How can we say relevant? Like, you know, posting stuff about this fab new dress or this cute little pair of like heels or a blouse or a top, when there's people out there who, you know, can't even pay their rent, behind their mortgage? How can a brand stay relevant?
Yeah, but people can still dream. You know,
Yeah.
the thing is not to offend people. I think is to
Yeah, but the cancel culture, everybody's offended now.
Yeah, I know. But the idea is to stay involved, to stay active. I mean, you know, and to speak your mind when necessary, but not take the opportunity to jump on anyone's bandwagon. I think that's embarrassing, and I think it's also disgraceful a little bit. And I'm
There
just
you
being
go,
honest.
there you go, there you go.
I mean, you know, if it's part of your natural conversation, jump in.
Yeah.
If it's not part of your natural conversation, it's going to work against you. And we've seen so many of that kind of shame culture about people who, and sometimes it's rightfully so, when people jump in on a conversation and they're acting like, you know, like Black Lives Matter. You saw
There you go. I didn't want to go down. I'm glad you brought it up. But I'm glad you brought it up.
But there are people who jumped on
that
their
bandwagon, making their social media all black squares.
And it's like it isn't their sweet spot. And I you know, and I've had so many people that I look at them and going,
What are you doing?
What are you doing? You have no reference of where you're speaking. You're just posting this because you think it's of the
relevant.
moment.
And it's just like you just have to look down 12 squares and you could see the 12 squares underneath that didn't represent that.
Exactly. And so I say, you know, it's funny. Women's Wear, I'm sure you read the piece. They did like 6 of us, the designers and our point of view, and with me, myself, and Andre Lantali.
And you're never shy about speaking up.
Of course I'm not. And the one thing I said was exactly that. I said, what should the industry do now? The industry should look inward and solve the problem themselves. And then by solving it ourselves, we will do the right thing naturally, and it can be quiet. It isn't necessarily to do an ad campaign saying that I hired a president to run something just because I'm trying to show off that,
Look, I have a black person. I have a black person.
Yeah, it's just so odd to me. It is so odd to me. It's so odd to me. It's like the same instance that, like, in all the interviews that I've been going through, I mean, I've done one after another where it's always the question, what do you think of, isn't it exciting to be a black designer right now? I said, I've always been black.
There you go.
And I've been a designer since I was a little kid. I've designed everything. So I'd rather be known as a designer who happens to be black than at this moment just a black designer who's out there because of some kind of quota or something, or skin tone, or if there's like a, you know, oh, if we do 6, we got to have 3 that are black. You know, I'm going to throw you in there because it seems so inauthentic. And it's the same thing I was saying about speaking out. If it's natural, your spot. Obviously, I'm a black man, so when I see someone on the ground with a knee on his neck, obviously I feel it. So I feel the unique opportunity that I can say something. But some people who, like, you know, I love the empathy, stand behind it, support it, give money, support the causes, whatever. But standing up
do
and
your reading and your research.
and understand from whence you speak, because it's also embarrassing to hear people speak and they're completely biased.
Because
And
they're
they
reading
don't
off a
even know it.
teleprompter.
They're
They're reading off a teleprompter.
But
That's
they don't
why.
even actually know that what they're saying sounds really biased. It's not racist, but it's biased what you're saying. And to say that, oh, I need to have a black person on my board when you're the head of a company sounds completely ludicrous. Like, what were you doing before this? Like, you know, why did you feel that right now you need to walk out and say that? Because that's odd to me.
Why do you need to be screaming and shouting that in June, July, and August?
Right. It's like, were your stocks going down? I have no idea. I don't look at your books, but that's what I figured. I mean, you know, it's odd to me at this moment, and I don't.
How can we overcome that then? Because anybody with intelligence can see through that. How can they overcome that?
I think everyone sees what's happening right now. I mean, and
It's so obvious.
And I have a lot of conversations with my clients and about that, and they're like asking me how I feel. I said, listen, I just hope this isn't a trend. And
It's obvious that it is. It's a
Exactly.
hashtag.
And
It's a trend.
Exactly, and it's embarrassing for me, and I feel like I don't want to partake in it, but, like, you know, it's an odd moment because you're like, everyone's asking you these questions, and I'm like, I'm a designer. I'd love to talk about my clothing.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't need to talk to you about what it feels like being black. I've been black. I was born black. I don't necessarily feel any different probably than you, other than when someone treats me differently because I'm black.
Yes, you
It's
know, and it's
odd.
what you were saying before. People need to read, but let's go back to the collection.
No, but it's oddity. I think that
Yeah.
is part of the collection.
Yeah.
Because of that's from whence I have been thinking this season is the idea because of I call this collection Hindsight is 2020. And the idea of that like we did this before. Before we were born, there was a huge uprising in the 60s and we didn't live through it, but we became the fruits of that labor. And so I thought we got past this. So to have to now go back and readdress things that our parents had to deal with is actually ridiculous. And so I say hindsight is 2020 because now we can look back and hopefully we see that euphoria that happened. The 70s happened after that, the freedom movement, which is what I was inspired by. And so the freedom movement came and that whole kind of rebirth of getting back to nature and getting back to things that matter came after that uprising. And we're going there again, I think. And I said, but this time maybe we'll learn from those lessons and we won't just ask black people like how do they feel today, but we'll actually
With a hashtag.
exactly. And then take a picture of us for Instagram so they can show that we were with a black guy today.
There you go. We're diverse.
Exactly. But that we'll actually take this moment to actually, you know, like invest and kind of move forward on some of those changes. And with that, the 70s whole idea, we'll go back to the clothing a little bit. I mean, that's where all this is born of. You know, it's like that idea of, you know, I mean, it could not be. You know, that's the detailing of the ruffles, the kind of like, you know, natural, like kind of weaving of the fabrics. I love all of these textures kind of coming together that once again, it goes back to the idea of being, you know, if it isn't completely made by hand, but having that feeling that a hand touched it. I kind of am really in that moment right now. That mixed with like this subtleties of, you know, and obviously the whole Louis period of the early 70s with the ruffles and you know,
What's the fabric so the viewers know?
this is a metal. Yeah, this is a metallic lace. All my laces are from Solstice in Paris. I don't go anywhere else because of I mean they are the best. They supply Chanel, they supply all the couture houses, and I love the idea that I can make them. I take them and make them more modern and more easy to wear because you know like other houses like make them more structured. I'm into taking everything, all the structure away and feeling comfortable in it. So hence why you can see this has nothing underneath. It usually would be lined and it would be boned on the sides to keep the lace from, you know, but instead I create everything with double seams and everything so that it creates the same kind of structure without having to add all of this extra stuff. Yeah. So I love all of that. And these are some of the laces. Yeah, look at how this is made. If you see closely, you can see. Obviously, during the shutdown, we couldn't get all of the mills like working in full steam. So these were made by someone at a kiln by themselves, weaving this. So you can see how they put in all of the different textures. And there's through here is like little different, like the silks and the cottons and you know, and all of it, like the detail's amazing. And the little pieces of ribbon, you know, there's the Lamar, you know, Mylar ribbons in there. I think it's really chic.
How did you manage to stay communicating with everybody? You know, the Zoom has the lag. You were very like instrumental with dictating to everybody how to make this collection.
Images. I did sketches and images, and I take little swipes of little stitches that I liked. I said, you know, I love this. How do we make this into this? Can we add this to this? And then you get swatches sent back to you. So it was thank God during the quiet time we had time to go back and forth. You know. Especially since a lot of people weren't really working in the office. It took a little longer lag to get things back. So it was interesting, but I got it all done. It was
refreshing, as we were talking about earlier off camera. It was actually refreshing because people could actually take time to look through stuff and digest, and you were doing your orders, go away, think about it, and come back again. As opposed to this whole like New York.
Well, I mean, you once again back to the whole story we're talking about, especially that influenced me through the collection, is that this kind of like, okay, now let's take a deep breath and let's calm down and like let's be appropriate for the moment. You know, it doesn't mean this is lasting forever, but let's be, you know, we don't have to scream and holler at this moment, and we can, you know, even with the shows, everything is a little quieter because there's not this kind of frenetic energy because everyone's running around trying to, you know, get 500 models for a show and 500 people, and you know, and there was this quiet time where we're like, oh, what are we really doing? And I don't know how many designers actually knew what they were actually thinking about for this season.
But not only what are we doing, but what are we saying? What is our message?
Exactly.
Because the message just overturned, because I feel the whole world, okay, it's New York Fashion Week, but the whole world is in a different message, in a different environment right now.
And as designers, what is your vision for what's coming next?
What is it? Tell the viewers, what is it?
I think it's personal luxury. I think it's luxury for yourselves. It's not dressing in labels. It's dressing in ideas that feel comfortable for you. And finding ideas, when you come back to designer, I think that people are going to be grabbing pieces that mean something to them. Like, that's why I spent so much time touching stuff, because I want them to feel when they put on a Frederick Anderson piece that they touch me. And that when they put on this crochet, someone actually made that by hand.
Yeah.
And I think that's the next moment where people are going to go, where did it come from, and how does it make sense in my wardrobe? Because I don't want to throw everything out anymore. Because we also need to worry
that
about
longevity.
Longevity. We don't want to just consume anymore. I mean, we're at that moment as well. I mean, and people are going to be hurting financially. So when they buy an item, it's going to mean a lot.
He says, living on 55th Street in New York City. Frederick is really hurting.
I am hurting. We're all hurting. Hello.